Hello, and welcome to Think About It. I'm always surprised and a little bit disappointed to see the extent to which Americans will go to avoid having to do or really even consider attempting anything remotely difficult or inconvenient. Anything that would require effort above the ordinary and maybe cause a change in our behavioral patterns. You know, you can lose weight by popping a pill. If you watch the right infomercial, you can order the stuff without having to even leave your home or ever enter into a gym. And if none of that works, just buy some Spanx and cover it all up. In Washington, D.C., when the subject of difficult decision-making comes up, you can almost see the visible trickle down the leg of elected officials who are frightened to death of having to go back to their home districts and say to their constituents, it's time for us to tighten up the buckles a little bit and do some things differently. They just won't do it. Instead, they manufacture a crisis, they put a name on it like Fiscal Cliff, they feed that out to the media, and here you go, you see it day in and day out, and are led to believe that if Thelma and Louise drive us over the edge of this fiscal cliff, that all of life as we know it will come to an end. Can I tell you what this is really all about? If you and your family have overextended yourselves on credit cards and you are now at the point where you can't even afford the massive interest rates, at some point, the banks will say to you, guess what? You don't get to have any more credit cards because we don't trust that you can pay it back. And so you're going to have to, A, begin to pay it back, and B, change a lot of your behaviors that led you into this position to start with. I'm sure most of you watching this can easily think of another family, perhaps relatives, maybe even in your own home, where this sort of thing has happened, where Americans have gone so deeply into debt that it's hard to see a way out. That's what the fiscal cliff is all about. It's about having the government do the exact same thing that every one of us would have to do had we spent ourselves into a point of near oblivion. We would have to stop spending. My friends, don't be duped. You're smarter than that. Do you know what will happen on January 1st if, hand in hand, like Thelma and Louise, we plunge into the fiscal cliff? You'll still wake up and watch some football bowl games and consume too much pizza. You'll prepare for a return back to your place of employment because you still got a family to provide for. You'll still be a true patriot in this country, one who shakes his head or her head and wonder like I do at how did we get here? When in reality the answer is we keep voting for it. So now that the time has come to do some things that are difficult, that are a little bit unpleasant, that might cause some change in behavior, don't chicken out. This is where we are now as a nation, and just as your family would have to decide a list of priorities for spending if faced with a similar situation, that's exactly what Washington needs to do. Don't let them off the hook. Call your congressperson and say to them, not a penny more. Not a penny more. You see, if you close a loophole or raise a rate, it doesn't matter. It's still a tax increase. The definitions have been made up for you to follow in the media and think, if they close that loophole, that's a little different. I won't be that upset about that. Here's the bottom line, friends. If you end up with less of your own money to spend as you see fit, that's called a tax increase. How they got there is irrelevant. Now, we ask you to speak out, to make your voice heard, to not be fooled, because the label of the fiscal cliff is intended to do one thing, to scare you into acquiescing to whatever the request happens to be. And I'm here to tell you we'd be better off diving over that cliff and doing some hard things.